Hey guys, welcome back to Candid Cinema. I'm Amanda, otherwise known as AMX ND Reviews on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. Today I will be reviewing Edgar Wright's brand new film, Last Night in Soho. Now, I've been holding on to this film since TIFF, so for me it's been like 2 months of this, and it's just so good. There's some shots that really stayed with me. The story's really good. To me, this is Edgar Wright's best film to date. And let me know in the comments if you disagree. I want to know what your top 3 Edgar Wright films, what your favorite Edgar Wright film is. Let me know in the comments. So this film may not sit well with everybody. I absolutely love psychological thrillers, and I was so excited to see that Edgar Wright was going to be making one. I was really stoked. The trailers look great. They didn't really give that much away, but the thing is that with Edgar Wright, he has his own style. We all know that he has his own style, and I think that this is one of his more polished films, more well-rounded films, where he knows that it's his style, yet he's playing around with so many different aspects and incorporating so much into one film. He uses giallo horror elements. He uses some slasher elements as well, and just the psychological thriller aspect. That genre he really nails because there's constant twists and turns that you don't see coming, but it's the horror elements that have really stuck out to me because of the way that he tells the story. The story is a bit dark, it's twisted like any psychological thriller, but it's multi-layered. It has so many components, and there's complex characters that deal with mental illness, past trauma, and it's all wrapped up into this unlikely horror movie. For women, this is a horror movie, and I'm saying that for real. It is a horror movie. I literally could not sleep after Last Night in Soho because it scared the bejesus out of me. So Edgar Wright takes us to the streets of London, where we meet Ellie, an aspiring fashion designer who is played beautifully by Thomasin McKenzie. Such a standout. I loved her in Jojo Rabbit, but she really just brings that emotional depth to Ellie. And we see that she's lost her mom. She has struggled without her mother, and it really takes a mental toll on her, but she feels that she always has a connection with her and that she sees her, which is a tie to the supernatural as we get into the story. So there is a placement there of something that she's connected to ghosts and spirits and all of that. So we see that. So when she hits London, she wants to be accepted. She feels that she's more reserved and quiet, and she wants to be the it girl. So she sees that there's these cliques in the university, and she feels very out of it, very alienated, and that she's made fun of, and she doesn't want that. So all of a sudden, when she does end up moving out to this other lady's home who wants someone to actually pay rent and live there, she starts having these dreams. And she sees Sandy in 1966, who looks like this beautiful blonde, played perfectly by Anya Taylor-Joy. She's absolutely brilliant. So she starts having these visions of this woman, and she's trying to make a name for herself and be a dancer and be a club singer and all of that, and she has to work her way up, but she doesn't want to work her way up in the way that the men around her would want her to, if you get my drift. So it's a good blending of characters. You have someone who's more reserved, someone who's very outspoken and is very rough and very sure of her identity in 1966 as Sandy. But what really struck me was the fact that you have these 2 different women, 2 different eras, and they experienced similar trauma when it comes to engaging with men. And I think that's really effective in the way that he did that, in the way that Christy Wilson Cairns wrote the script, because she co-wrote it with Edgar Wright. We do have a woman's perspective on paper and through that lens. So it really, really hit me at the fact that all women have experienced that level of trauma, of harassment, of verbal abuse, all of that. Women have experienced that, whether it was minor or major, they've experienced that. So in Last Night in Soho, you do have the flashiness of Edgar Wright style. You have the music, the killer soundtrack. You have all of that, the color palette, the lighting, everything that was on the outside made it look so pretty, and it draws you in. And then it's, he's telling this story that is really traumatic and painful, especially from a woman's perspective as an audience member. So it really hit me at times when I didn't think it would hit me, because it's not supposed to be something that would hit emotionally. Like, that's what I got from the trailers. I didn't think that would happen, but like I said, it's multi-layered, it's complex. These characters are linking together because Ellie wants what Sandy has. But if you really look at it too, and you see this parallel, Sandy wants to be the it girl, but also be reserved and just keep to herself. But she can't in this industry where she's going to have to deal with men like this. And it's unfortunate that she has to deal with men like this. And that's in the 1960s. And we hope that it gets better, as we've seen. But it's the fact that you have that link, and you see it and you still feel the pain. We've all experienced something like that, as I said before. So Thomasin McKenzie and Anya Taylor-Joy did a fantastic job with both of their characters. I absolutely adore them in this. They killed it. And the one thing that I do have to touch upon, apart from the camera work and the direction, like, my God, the editing made this film what it was, because everything was perfectly timed. The editing, when it came to splitting Ellie and Sandy, was absolute perfection. You do see one sequence in the trailer where they're dancing and it flips from like Ellie to Sandy, but it just gets so much better in context of the actual film. So you have all of that. And then it slowly builds into this third act where Ellie is getting more and more connected to Sandy, and it's odd. It's very questionable. It doesn't make any sense why she's seeing certain things, why she's experiencing certain things. So as I said before, she has that link to the supernatural, which affects a lot of her daily life in school, especially. So we see that. And then in the third act, what really got to me was the level of violence and how graphic it became in the third act. It was hard to watch at times. It really was. But there's this really cool thing that he did with the special effects, Edgar Wright, where there were these like faceless men. And you do see them in the trailer. I'm not spoiling anything, but these faceless men are what scared the living shit out of me. It scared me. I could not sleep that night. I stayed up until like 2-3 o'clock in the morning. All the lights were on. I could not sleep because I felt like they were going to come attack me in the middle of the night. And that is the trauma that women have faced, where it's like a faceless man could be anybody. That's our worst fear. That's one of our worst fears, is like either walking home alone at night or any of that. Like that's something that we think about, that God forbid we get attacked, it could be anybody. And then that's the scary part, is that it could be anyone. You can't trust anyone. It's all of that. So it builds up that anticipation. It builds up that anxiety. And again, Thomasin McKenzie is just fan-freaking-tastic. She's so good. And it's just like a slow descent into her psyche and what she's thinking about, and is being projected into her room where she sleeps, where she has these visions of Sandy, and slowly but surely, like, they just kind of blend together, and it's scary for her, but it's just so well done. You have the good side of Ellie, where she wants to become a fashion designer, and she's excelling because she kind of copies what she sees of Sandy from the 60s, the hair, everything. She becomes this like fashion queen in university, but then afterwards she kind of loses it a bit, and she loses herself and her identity. And I think it's really cool to explore that. So again, Krysty Wilson-Cairns, who co-wrote the script with Edgar Wright, did a fantastic job writing both characters and the complexity of the storyline and how it affects women. I thought it was really, really just something different. And Edgar Wright films are always different, whether they're a hit or a miss for you. He takes those risks, and that's what I love about him. So Last Night in Soho is a really interesting watch, really interesting. Go in with an open mind. There are some really great giallo horror elements, but at its core, it is a psychological thriller done by Edgar Wright. It's beautifully shot. It has a very complex story, phenomenal performances by two of the best young working actors today in Anya Taylor-Joy and Thomasin McKenzie. The soundtrack is fire. Downtown by Anya Taylor-Joy has been looping in my head for like a month and a half now. And thank God they dropped it on Spotify so I don't have to hear myself singing it, you know, because my voice isn't that great, but hers, she has the voice of an angel. So it is just a wicked movie, really well done. My favorite Edgar Wright film to date. Do not miss it in theaters. Please go watch it. So if you guys enjoyed this review, please like and subscribe. You can always follow me over at AMXNDA Reviews on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. Come chat about it with me this weekend. I'll catch you guys next time. Keep watching movies.